Jack Welsby, should he miss the World Cup this year, Dan, and Saints missed the 6, he's not going to play Rugby League from September the 11th until the World Cup, if he gets picked. If he misses out on a World Cup place, that would easily make my mind up to go to a club that's a champion club like Wigan.
Thursday's game, Cowboys 12, Roosters 82.
You're some tipster, Dan. You're some tipster.
I knew you'd bring this up. Thank you for that.
You're worse than Kyle Moore on the back.
Yeah, well, we're both cut from the same cloth. What can I say?
And now it's time for Rugby League.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode on NRL Insight UK with me, your host, Dan Lee. Joining me once again this week is former Hull FC and Hull KR player Paul Cook. How are you doing, Paul?
Yeah, good, thank you, Dan. Busy. Both Super League and watching NRL, so yeah, can't really get enough. Really busy week for me this week.
Yeah. What was the game that you did this weekend? Was it the Castleford one, was it?
I did Hull KR Bradford, and then I went to Castleford Leeds as well, so one with Sky, one with TalkSport Radio, so yeah, really enjoyed that. Got to see most of the other games, got the highlights of Wigan and Leigh. Obviously I was on the same time as that, and Leeds and Toulouse, so I got to see all of the highlights of the games.
Yeah, because we'll come on to it later in the podcast, but they had three kickoffs at the same time, which was crazy with the scheduling. But we'll come on to that further down the line. We're going to get straight into Question Cookie then. The usual start with your own round. So yeah, let's get straight into Question Cookie. Question 1 then. Current New Zealand Warriors head coach Andrew Webster coached you in the late 2000s at Hull KR. What was he like as a coach personally for you?
Yeah, brilliant. I thought he brought in some really, really great ideas. When I went to Hull KR in 2007, he was in and around the academy. And then in 2009, he was the senior assistant to Justin Morgan. I remember myself and Michael Dobson doing some kicking stuff. We scored our kicks out of different scores where we put the kicks in the game. We lost scores if we put them dead and stuff like that. So, it was brilliant. It was really, really thorough. Obviously it wasn't a great time for me at the club, but he was someone who I felt that I could trust and lean on. And I think it's gone on in his career. When I listen to some players, particularly Sean Johnson, the recently retired New Zealand Warriors half, who's been around as well at different clubs, he says he's a real players man, and that's what he is. I think he cares about his players. Yeah. He cares about them even if they're not a part of the first team squad or in and around the first team as the first 17. So it was great. Really thorough with his preparation. His videos were great. Previews, his reviews were good. Really fair. So yeah, I'm really pleased to see where he is at in his career. I think he's a wonderful, wonderful coach.
I was going to say, because of how well he's done and doing at the Warriors, has it surprised you at all about how well he's going? Did you always think he was going to go to the top?
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, I thought he had the demeanour as well. He's good in the media. He never moans. He never bags referees. No. He very rarely comes out and says anything other than his team have got to fix up. I think he's really, really likeable guy, isn't he? And he certainly cares about his players from what you hear.
Because
he's got Richard Agar over there with him as well. Richard Agar was the assistant when we won the Cup with Hull in 2005. And Richard's a really thorough and meticulous coach. There's not too many people that know a great deal more about Rugby League than Richard Agar. And, and Andrew's up there with that. And there'll be one other that's probably out eclipses everybody, and that's Ian Proctor at Sky, who does all the stats for everybody. And Ian's a wealth of knowledge. I look forward to his emails when I'm working on Sky. But yeah, Andrew's doing a fantastic job. They're sat third in the comp now, and I hope they can get the job done. Be difficult over Penrith and Roosters, but they're really tough at home. That's for sure. The Wires.
They are. Let's move quickly into the next one then. Which former teammate of yours never received the credit they deserved?
Oh, geez, that's a tough one. Sean Briscoe. I think Sean Briscoe was never given the credit he deserved, both at Hull FC and Hull KR. I think people don't underestimate how difficult it is to play fullback, and how brave he was. I'll tell you one funny story. We were playing in a Hull derby at Craven Park. It's the only one I lost, so I remember it really well. I came off the bench. And Hull FC dropped the ball. I was playing for Hull KR. Hull FC dropped the ball on hour 20, and out of nowhere comes a flying Superman, Sean Briscoe, to dive on the ball. He dives on the ball and he collects somebody's knee on the back of his head and knocks himself clean out. And he's laid on the floor and he's sort of still asleep and snoring. And me and Richard Horner stood up there, and there's going to be a scrum pack for a knock on. And he was never the quickest Brisk, but I didn't quite understand, but it just shows his bravery. He dives on the ball, gets knocked out, he's laid snoring. And I stood with Richard on and I said, what did he think was going to happen? Like, was he going to think he was going to collect it and go the distance, 80 metres, without somebody catching him? Because he'd have got to the halfway and he'd have been caught by Gaz Rayner or somebody else, really. So, yeah, it was mental. It was the end. It was sort of late 2007 or 2008 when he did it. And it was crazy what he did. I was just like, what did he expect to happen? But that was the bravery of him. And, when the ball went in the air, we knew he was going to catch it. He got on the end of things. He was fit aerobically. So, yeah, he was underestimated, in my opinion.
Well, his nose would indicate how brave he was, I think.
Part of his last contract was to get his nose straightened, which was a hell of a job. I'm pretty sure it was a longer operation than open heart surgery.
Unbelievable. Next one. In your opinion, who was the best overseas player you ever shared a dressing room with?
Oh, Jason Smith. Jason Smith was phenomenal. He taught me everything about the game. I've said this story a million times, but I spent a full pre-season training 2 meters behind Jason just to look at what he was looking at, and it was a coach's idea. So I spent a full pre-season just watching what he was doing and why he wanted the ball, what he was seeing as a defensive line to want the ball. I remember a clip where he played. I think he played at Canberra and or it might have been North Queensland. And Gus Gould comments and he says, Jason Smith plays at his own pace. It's a dying art in the game. That was a phenomenal comment from Gus, because he was never quick in terms of off the mark or in terms of pace, but he was always a step ahead in his head. And I don't think I'd have had the career I had without the influence of Jason Smith at the club. And some honourable mentions. Listen, I think Richard Swain was very close. Stephen Kearney, Shane McMenemy was very underestimated as an overseas player. Nathan Blacklock came at the end of his career, but was still phenomenal. Yeah. Matt Singh, another one. Played with some brilliant players. Craig Greenhill, obviously the first player to be sent off in Origin.
Yeah, Knuckles.
Knuckles. Yeah.
Love it
for obvious reasons.
Yeah. We've got a couple more to go. This is a good one. Andrew Joey Johns. You had the pleasure of playing against him on 2 different occasions. How good actually was Joey? How good was he to share the field with?
Yeah, well, the first game the first game we played against him was at the KC Stadium, as it was then, in a last league game of the season, and we was 4th and they was 5th, I think. We was in a home position for semi-final for a playoff game, and they was behind us. They was coming to us the next week if we won.
Yeah.
They destroyed us. I think he put on 3 tries for Brent Gross, the fullback at Warrington. And I sort of stood in awe of him, watching what he was doing. And I found myself watching him rather than what I should have been watching in the first game, you know, in terms of what was in front of me defensively, just to sort of gauge what he was doing as a player. I'd watched him the week before against Leeds in his debut, and he destroyed Leeds Rhinos at home. And then they came to us and beat us by 30. And then sort of the following week, we went there in the playoffs, and it was the old John Kears story where, you know, he builds it up. We can't win this game. Nobody believes we can win this game. By half-time, Nathan Blacklock, Tingers scored 3 tries. We're 18-0 up, and we win the game by 40. But he was phenomenal. His talk, what he scanned, what he looked for, the way he caught the ball, which line of run he went on, and who he fixed and dragged to him. It was like a Jason Smith-esque, if you like, in terms of playing the way he wanted to play and fixing and dragging players. It was like going back to my childhood as it was.
Yeah.
But we had the last laugh. We knocked him out of the playoffs the week later.
Yeah, I was going to say I was waiting for you to drop that part in. Why fans will love that one.
In, then I'll answer. Then I'll add this. Stephen Kearney gets sent off after 7 minutes the week after, and we lose 71-0 at Bradford, and that knocks us out the playoffs.
Yeah, that hurt, that one. Sticking with Joey Johns then to wrap it up, wrap question cookie up. Rate the following 1 to 3: Andrew Johns, Nathan Cleary, Jonathan Thurston.
Oh, Jesus Christ, Dan, that's what have you done to me here?
I thought I'd give you one.
John Thurston Cleary.
Yeah. Might have to edit this part.
I think Nathan Cleary will eclipse the two of them in the end. But right now, I'd go Thurston 3, Cleary 2, Johns 1. But I think. But I think you could put either of them in any order and have a valid argument to say I'm right. Other people will have a different opinion. I'm sick to death of people coming at me saying you're wrong when they expect me to change the mind on because their opinion is different to mine. They want me to flip to their opinion. I'm never going to change my mind. I've got my own reasons for feeling the way I feel about things, but nobody's wrong in that situation. I don't think.
No. I just wanted to know if you
want to chuck in Cooper Cronk on top of that, Stacey Jones, Sean Johnson, Brett Morley. If you want, you can chuck a load in. Terry Evans.
Yeah, unbelievable.
There's some phenomenal halves that's played the game.
There has. Well, that wraps it up for Question Cookie this week. Remember to like and subscribe. And also, if you want to drop your comments in the comments section for questions you'd like me to ask Paul Cook, just let me know. And the best ones will be selected and we'll put it in next week's episode. So it's now time for the NRL news. NRL news then, and the biggest story this week is the confirmed news of Matt King as the Blues head coach. What do you think he is capable of? Obviously, it takes him out the running for the St. Helens job. The Saints were hoping they were going to get his name across the line, but how good is it that they've got someone in the camp who's already been part of a winning culture? Obviously, they've just won the State of Origin. How highly do you rate this move for Matt King to the Blues?
Well, he's been on the cusp, hasn't he, in terms of being an assistant for a long time in the NRL. And let me tell you, he was a phenomenal player at Warrington. So I think it's a great move. I think it's always better when you've got some continuity at a club where you keep staff around, particularly winning staff and staff that have been part of winning cultures and winning teams. He looked delighted this morning when I saw a little snippet before I went off to the gym, and he looks proud as punch to be the New South Wales head coach.
He does.
I think he'll do a great job. I think he understands the players. He's got he's looking for. But one thing he did mention, what I saw was, if you're a New South Welshman, I'm looking forward to being part of a journey with you. It's not about him. It's not about his staff. It's about players. It always is about players. And he made it that way. So, I think it's a great move by the New South Wales board. And I wish Matt King very well with it. A shame to see Laurie go. I will say that. I think the media attention and the unfairness of the media during the last State of Origin series has probably made his mind up. I felt it was unfairly attacked and personally attacked for other agendas and other journalists' agendas over in Australia, which is poor form. Well done to Laurie Daly. He certainly answered his critics, and Matt King will hope he can carry it on.
He also goes out on a winning series. Laurie, he goes out, he's shut all the critics up. It's a big FU to the journalists who are bagging him the whole series. So this is a good time for him to step back. He's done the job that he was employed to do.
Stan. He made some brave calls, didn't he? When you look at the team selections, particularly around the spine of the team and the halves, and you live and die by the sword, and you're right. The big FU to everybody from Laurie Daly with a series win.
So we wait to see how well Matt King will go. I'm sure he'll do really well with the Blues. Next piece of news, and it started to circle again. Herbie Farnworth to the Sydney Roosters. The rumours have started again. He is a November 1 guy, so he's going to be open to speak to clubs at the 1st of November. Also coincides with James Tedesco is able to speak to clubs from the 1st of November. Could you see this move happening, firstly? And secondly, could you see Herbie playing as a fullback at the Roosters?
Yeah, I think you can see it. I think he'll need some time to adjust. I think he'll certainly need a pre-season to train there. He's a brilliant centre, by the way. Probably the world's best with Crichton if he plays in the centre, but he's moved into the halves as of now with the Dogs. But yeah, I can see it, and I think you never say never with the Roosters.
No,
the Roosters have got an uncanny knack of getting players over the line and bringing them in, particularly big players. When you think about the Daly Cherry Evans and the Cooper Cronk one before the last grand final win,
yeah.
Cherry Evans this year could end up in a grand final win. They signed some big players. Dom Young went over there. I know it didn't work out, but that was a big signing for the club. So yeah, they find a way, don't they? Spencer Leniu, another big signing, Brandon Smith. So yeah, you look at Herbie Farnworth. If you're one of the world's best centres and you're coming off contract and you know you're one of the world's best centres, then why wouldn't you wait while November 1st? Unless there's a huge offer from the Dolphins, which means your head shouldn't be turned if you're happy where you are. And I can't see that the Dolphins haven't tried to offer Herbie a contract. So, maybe it's not enough for Herbie, or maybe the Roosters have got to him early.
It just seems like it's all aligning for this move to happen, because if you've got Tedesco and Herbie off contract at the same time, they're on about, well, they've let Connor Watson go because he's going to the Dragons. He's going to then on to the Chiefs. There's been talk all season that Spencer Leniu's going to be going. Daly Cherry Evans is potentially retiring.
So he is retiring, isn't he?
So it then all that cap space is then becoming available. So it's almost like they're aligning themselves ready for this move.
It's almost like they've got a recruitment plan.
Yeah,
Dan.
yeah.
It's almost like they're thinking, a year ahead and 2 years ahead, which is what recruitment's all about, mate. So I can see it happening. I certainly can see it happening. You see, the thing with the Chiefs is it's going to free up a lot of cap space. I can't see I've had this conversation with a couple of people over the last couple of days. When you think about the best players in Super League here now, in Wigan's team particularly, why wouldn't Willie Peters want to take some of them? Why wouldn't Willie Peters want to take some of a Lockie Miller, a Jay Field, a Bevan French? Bevan's probably in his 30s now, maybe not. But you look at some of the players that are still in the mid to late 20s. Why wouldn't Willie Peters be thinking about them for 2028? So you already look at the spine of the team that he's trying to put together with Luai, possibly Cameron Munster. They need a fullback. They've got players coming through the door, and players want to join the PNGTs for the tax-free money. So why wouldn't the best players over here in Super League be thinking about the PNG Chiefs?
Yeah, it's that one that especially Jai Field from Wigan, that would make sense. He's an out-and-out fullback. And
I'm copying it, Dan. I'm copying it on social media for saying Welsby to Wigan and maybe Field wouldn't be there in 2028. And I'm thinking Chiefs. I'm thinking NRL and Chiefs. Or Perth Bears is a year too early because he's still under contract, and so is Welsby next year. So I may be completely wrong, in which case I'll hold my hands up. Wigan may decide to keep Jay Field, or Jay Field may decide to stay. A lot will depend on what his personal situation is with family, particularly wives, girlfriends, when they're over here. I know he's been over here quite a while already, but I think there's certainly the world of rugby league is rocked by the tax-free money at PNG, which is a little unfair because they've got players wanting to join PNG rather than having to recruit.
No, I completely agree with that. I can see. I'm not so much sold on the idea of Welsby to Wigan. I can see all the jigsaw pieces, but with the field to the Chiefs, I can definitely see that happening. I just see. I look at over the last few weeks, like going off topic a little bit, over the last few weeks, you take that form of Welsby's out, look at the gap from then back to when he scored the winning try in COVID against Wigan, and have a look at his performances over that period. Yeah, he's had a few injuries, but I don't think he's at Wigan standard, in my personal opinion.
But I also think, Dan, with that you've got to understand that cream rises to the top.
Yeah.
Just because you're not great for you. Some people have dips in form that last only a few weeks. Some have injuries which last a year.
Yeah.
You certainly know that with a quality environment that Jack Welsby could get back to.
Yeah.
Get back to his best.
Agreed. Yeah. No, I
agree. Listen, I'll say this: it's not a monetary move for Jack Welsby. It'll be a monetary move for Jay Field to go to the PNG Chiefs.
Yeah,
because it's tax-free money.
Yeah.
There'll be a monetary part of it in his head. For Jack Welsby, should he miss the World Cup this year, Dan, and Saints miss the 6, he's not going to play Rugby League from September the 11th until the World Cup if he gets picked. If he misses out on a World Cup place, that would easily make my mind up to go to a club that's a champion club like Wigan.
Yeah.
Because you want to be back in the international scene.
Yeah.
So there's lots of moving pieces in it, and I've just got a funny feeling. Wigan have, from what Sam Tompkins and John Wilkins said on Sky during a game recently, Wigan threw a boatload of cash at him before, and he stayed at Saints because Saints were travelling well.
Yeah.
But Saints aren't travelling well.
No, they're not.
And it might not have to be a boatload of cash because of his form now. It might just have to be a decent enough contract that he wants to play back at international level and decides that Wigan's the environment that he can do that.
Yeah. No, I agree. We'll see how it all unfolds, and if the move does come off, you might have to have a conversation with how much hammering he's going to take when he goes back to Saints to play against them.
Because obviously that's irrelevant, mate. Trust me, I've been there and done that. It's irrelevant. Players make decisions for their own personal reasons, and I couldn't sit there as an ex-player or even the most ardent St Helens fan and say Jack Welsby's gone to Wigan and that's a disgrace, but he's doing it for his international career. Or he's doing it, and he's not doing it for financial gain. I just couldn't sit there and say anything other than, can you blame him? Particularly with the way the club's at the moment.
Yeah, no, I agree. Moving on, Sean Blow has agreed a 2-year deal with the Brisbane Broncos. He's obviously been at the Melbourne Storm. I was surprised, obviously, the way the Storm have been struggling. They didn't try to keep hold of Sean, but it's a massive signing for Brisbane. I think he'll go well at the Broncos, especially with Madge being there.
Well, the cap space freed up from Haas moving to the Rabbitohs, and obviously Reynolds is probably going to finish. I don't know whether that's true or not. I'm guessing Reynolds is probably going to be done, moving to a coaching role. So there's going to be some cap space there, and a big signing, as you say, for Brisbane Broncos. There's a bit of a rebuild there, isn't there? They're likely to miss. Well, they are going to miss out on the 8. There's no question. Now after last week's defeat, so I just think there's a bit of a rebuild there. There's a bit, Madge is obviously a really shrewd coach, a tough coach. He goes from one tough environment under Craig Bellamy to Madge Maguire, and we wish Sean all the best. He's certainly a wonderful player, that's for sure.
Yeah, he is. Next piece of news, because we touched on PNG. Going back to PNG, Anthony Seibold, former Manly Seagulls head coach, has been announced that he's going to be Willie Peters' assistant. Good move.
Yeah, absolutely. When you can get anybody that's been a head coach in an environment as your assistant, then you've basically got 2 head coaches, haven't you? You've got 2 people that are firing ideas off each other. Willie's shrewd. Willie's smart. He's obviously turned down the opportunity to be part of the national squad again this year to concentrate on everything that he needs to do with PNG. So he ruled himself out of the England job when he was probably one of the favourites to take over for this year's World Cup. He's got his eye on PNG, and why wouldn't he? At the minute, he's not got a great deal of work to do with those above him to get people into the joint because they're queuing up at the door.
Yeah. Sitting on the fence with it a little bit, playing devil's advocate. If you're Willie Peters going into a brand new NRL franchise as the head coach, and the club have brought in another head coach alongside you, would you feel undermined at any point or for any reason that, it could be kind of conflicting? Or would you rather have that strong personality, experienced person by your side.
Well, I'd sooner have it because I wouldn't feel threatened. Listen, if you tell me that there's a coach in the world that knows more about rugby league than another coach, or has got better ideas than another coach, I'll call you a liar, because everybody's got different ideas. And there's so many times that people have come to me when I've been coaching and said, have you ever thought about this? And then all of a sudden I'll think about it and I'll never dismiss it. Even a player comes up, 9 times out of 10, a player will come up and say, what about this? What about this? And if I feel it's wrong, I'll tell them to get stuffed. But if I feel it's the right thing for the team, then we'll go with it. So I don't think... I think there's too many coaches that maybe would feel undermined, but I don't think Willie's one of them, and I don't think there's too many of them in the NRL. I think there's lots of coaches. Flanagan's an assistant now, and he's been a head coach for a long time. I think there's lots of assistants that have been head coaches in the NRL or even over here. So I don't see it being an issue for Willie. I'd certainly welcome it as a coach. I would want as much experience around me, particularly if you're going into your first NRL job.
The only reason I asked that question is because obviously the circumstances are quite different at PNG. They're going to be in a confined space, confined area, all living as one happy family. You want that right recipe from the off, don't you?
I would have thought, Dan, that there's been plenty of conversation and dialogue between Willie and Anthony. I can't see Willie choosing somebody who he's not going to get on with or he's not going to be able to bounce ideas off. But ultimately, I mean, I banged heads with some head coaches when I've been an assistant. But ultimately, once the decision's made, you leave the office, you're on board with the head coach. It's as simple as that. There's one boss and that's it.
Agreed. Last bit of NRL news. Going back to the Raiders, and obviously we know they've been shifting a lot of cap space around. The likes of Papali'i, he's going to be retiring, we think, unless his Super League move comes off. Morgan Smithers is obviously leaving for the Perth Bears. They've now tabled 2 new extensions. Ata Moriata, the big front rower, powerful player, really like Mariota, and obviously the young Colonel Ethan Sanders getting his extension. I think his first full season, obviously following in the footsteps of Jamal Fogarty, is always going to be difficult for anyone. But I think he's done quite well. I know the Raiders have struggled, but you can see they've got the foundation to kick on in seasons to come with the 2 Ethans at 6 and 7. How do you rate the business and the cap moving pieces of the Raiders?
It seems every year that they have like a bit of a rebuild, though, doesn't it, at the Raiders? I feel sorry for Ricky Stewart at times because, the players move on. I think the 2 Ethans at the halves will be brilliant in the years to come. Both very young, both very good players. One of them's already an Origin player and an international player, as Ricky Stewart said he would be. The big front rowers are obviously, a huge part of the the retention because they're going to lose Papali'i, it looks like. There's also the injuries to the back rower, Hudson Young. So it's important that they keep the cornerstone of them players together. Good business again from the Raiders. What a fall from grace this year, mind you. From minor premiers in 2025, probably the biggest fall of grace in the NRL this season when you look at it.
No, agreed. Well, that wraps it up this week for the NRL news. We're going to get straight into the NRL Round 22 results and analysis. NRL Round 22 then. We'll get straight into the first game, Thursday's game. Cowboys 12, Roosters 82.
You're some tipster, Dan. You're some tipster.
I knew you'd bring this up. Thank you for that.
You're worse than Kyler Moore on the back.
Yeah, well, we're both cut from the same cloth. What can I say? I'll go straight into it. Teddy got the first try. The halves were dialed in. Sam Walker was outstanding. Obviously got a hat-trick. They scored 8 tries in the first half, and it was 48-6 at half-time, and they had a try disallowed as well. It could have been over 50. How can you break this game down? No one expected an absolute annihilation.
Nobody expects 80. The Cowboys are on the back of a shorter turnaround. Roosters longer to recover and recuperate. Roosters are in great form. I put game over, halftime, 48-6 games over.
Yeah.
And then I think I put another comment on my social media, my ex account, and I put, if you're a Roosters, you just open a checkbook, you rip a page out, and you put it underneath Sam Walker's nose while he's sat at the table, and you ask him to fill it in for the next 5 years, and that will be his salary.
Yeah.
He's commanding now, isn't he? He was arguably going to be the state of origin player of the series until New South Wales win. 20-0 in the first game. I think he's commanding the game until the send off of Ponga. He's now Tom Dearden must be gutted with regards to what Sam Walker did at Origin level and the way he's playing, because Tom was a shoo-in before his injury, and then Sam Walker's taken over. Teddy, phenomenal. Taken off with an injury, but I'm sure he'll be fine. They just look like a team that are ready to win and ready to play. And from all the noise at the beginning of the year, when can Daly Cherry Evans and Sam Walker work, and can Teddy fit into this, and can they get the combinations together and right? No panic there from Trent Robinson, and right now it's sat second in the competition, and they're probably the form team of it.
Yeah, and it's kind of like Cooper Cronk 2.0, because they did exactly the same thing. Cooper Cronk came in, struggled. Who was his house partner at the time? He's completely flipped out my head. He struggled to have the combination going at the start of the season. Then it flourished. The partnership flourished, and they went on to win it.
Luke Keary.
Yeah, it was Luke Keary. Sorry, my mistake. So Keary and Cronk, they struggled at the start of the season, and it started to flourish. Then they just caught fire at the same time as the Roosters are catching fire now. It's kind of like history repeats itself, and that year they went on to win it. So you could be bang on the money with tipping them. But to close out on that game, Sam Walker and Teddy were my picks of the players for man of the match, and it was just an utter domination. Cowboys, it's one of them. You've just got to reset now. Wipe it completely out your mind.
I think they're the type of games, Dan, as a coach, where you can just say, draw a line under it. You are not going to meet a team that are as good as that any other week in the competition. Even if they meet the Roosters in playoffs or in later on in the season, if they play the Roosters again, the scoreline will never be like that. I think it's been such a long time in the NRL since the team scored 80. I think since 1935, I read. Something like that. So for a team to score 82 points in a game is no mean feat for the Roosters. But for the Cowboys, you just draw a line under it. They haven't become a poor team over the last week. They go from beating the Broncos to losing by that scoreline. That's not going to happen again.
No, it's not. We'll move quickly on to our next game then, Friday's game. Dragons 22, Dolphins 28. Selwyn Cobbo, Herbie Farnworth and Max Plath standouts for me. And also Kurt Donahue. I've never seen someone tackle and hit people as hard as he does. Kurt Donahue has been revelation this season since he's been playing. But the Dolphins, another win for them, obviously cements the place at the moment in the top 8. I think they're sitting 5th on 30 points. But I generally think this is the season, playoffs. I do think that they do get in there. I think Christian Wolf's done an exceptional job. Dragons, it's another one of them, isn't it? It's a valiant performance, but it's just a bit more of the same. Another loss. I think they're like you mentioned last week. I think they're looking at next year. How did you see this game, and what do you think of the Dolphins at the moment?
Yeah, I thought St George were good as well. It's really difficult for the Dragons because the season is done. It's over. And as valiant as they try and as gallant as they are, you don't get 2 competition points for losing games. It's as simple as that. So, you feel for them. There's some turnaround of player that is going to leave the club and be brought in terms of recruitment. A few of them are coming over to the Super League and CAS for a start. And so there's gonna be some big changes again at the Dragons. But when you look at the Dolphins, I think Christian Wolf books the trend of following in the footsteps of Wayne Bennett as the only coach who remains in job.
Yeah, he does.
They've done phenomenally well. Morgan Knowles playing really well in there.
Yeah, he is.
For the Dolphins. And as you said, the players that you mentioned are phenomenal for them. Winning games. Sat inside the playoffs, look like they're going to make the maiden playoff performances at the end of the season, and long may it continue for the Dolphins. It's been a wonderful journey for them, hasn't it? From when they
Yeah.
began and Wayne Bennett started the recruitment of them a few years ago. So I look forward to seeing them, and Christian Wolf's done a magnificent job.
Well, the Dolphins this week, they're at home to the Brisbane Broncos, so that should be a fiery encounter. Looking forward to that. But the Dragons, they're at home to the Cronulla Sharks, and we know how well they're going. Next game was Melbourne Storm 22, Canterbury Bulldogs 36. This win has now put them back into the top 8, and I'll put my hand up. I wrote the Dogs off. I didn't think they had it in them to go back, but they are clicking at the moment, and the return of Viliami Kikau, he's just been unbelievable.
He's the man. I tell you, he's the man because nobody gets to his outside shoulders.
No.
He's phenomenal at protecting his outside halfback. The try the week before where he steps off his left foot is it's just rugby league, poetry in motion, and the one-handed offload over the top, the basketball pass to Crichton. They look really dangerous. Crichton looks settled in the halves. Galvin looks better because of it.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I didn't see them making the 8 off the back of the performances, but the return of Kikau has been unbelievable.
Yes.
Thompson in the middle is playing really well now.
Yeah, he is. And because
you've got some big players playing.
He had a slow start, didn't he? Because they brought him in from the Newcastle Knights, and it looked as though he just was not getting to grips with it. But Leo Thompson, a massive guy. Like their pack is monstrous. Salmon scored 2 tries as well. I think he started at lock forward in this one, and he played really well. But there was two instances, going back to Viliami Kikau's, 2 instances where he had 3 or 4 defenders around him, on him, and he just finds a way to just pop it underneath over the top, and he's just must be a nightmare to defend against.
He's so big as well.
Yeah,
I tell you a funny story, Dan. Me and my partner was in Hull when the World Cup was on, and they was based in Hull. And we walked into Nando's, and my partner said to me, "What's wrong with you?" And she said, "What's the matter? You look like you look like you're like you've had a stroke." And stood there was Kikau and Api Coruscant, and I'm a huge fan of Viliami Kikau, and for one of the very few people that I was starstruck over. My missus said, "Paul, you look an idiot. Can you sit down and eat your food, please?" It was surreal to see him up close. He's huge. He's a huge man. His back's huge.
Yeah.
It must be a right edge halfback's nightmare the night before you're playing against him.
Yeah, he must be. Another one another win in the bag for the Bulldogs. The Storm. I don't like putting lines through teams at the moment because I keep getting things wrong. But
no, I think you're probably right too.
Yeah, Melbourne.
I think they're going to miss too many big players for too long before they run into playoffs.
Barring Suafa-Longo, who I have to give him a mention because he's unplayable at sometimes. He's so elusive. Apart from him, the whole spine's gone. Even before kickoff, Jerome Hughes was named to play at 7 and he dropped out with an injury. Obviously, they were already missing Cam Munster, missing Harry Grant. Xavier Coates has not played all season. There's just too many Origin international players.
Will Warbrick's
gone as well. You fear for them, but they have brought in Bronson Cherry. They brought in Jermaine Asako from the Dolphins, so they are trying to address the issues. So they'll be hoping for a better year next year. Moving on to the game that followed that was the Gold Coast Titans 6, New Zealand Warriors 42. New Zealand, obviously, the Warriors back to winning ways. The Titans, it's a strange one because the Titans over the past few weeks, I thought they've played well. And in this one, I feel like it was kind of an inferior complex. They didn't really start with the belief that they could get a result. It was kind of, for me, when I was watching it, it looked like they were already beaten before they started. And then obviously they had the bad news of the young halfback who's been playing very well. Zane Harrison went down with a hamstring injury, so they had to do a bit of reshuffling, which is never never ideal. But what do you think to the Warriors? You think that they could break back into that top 2, or are you saying they're going to finish outside of that now?
I think they finished there. I don't think anybody catches Roosters and Penrith, but they
No.
could. It could change. Never say never. I think that the Titans run into a team at the very much the wrong time after a defeat the week before, which was a poor one. I know a narrow one, but a poor one and an unexpected one. So when you consider can you imagine what was said in the four walls last week at the Waz headquarters during reviews and pointing of fingers, and I said it last week. I think it might be the kick up the backside that they need. That they can't go into games complacent, and I don't think they did in this one. I thought from minute one they were physically dominant. They always looked like they were going to win, and I also agree with you that the pulling out of the half of the Titans and the rejig, it's a recipe for disaster for a team when they're coming up against the Warriors off the back of a loss.
Yeah, it is, and I thought as well he's so underrated. Dylan Egan at 9. He was touted that he may get in to the Blues squad for State of Origin, didn't come off. I think he reminds me when I mentioned last week about Danny Walker for Warrington Woolswood, that it's that ideal 9 who they see things ultra quick and they've got pace with it. It just kills you as a defence, and he's the art of it in the NRL. Dylan Egan. Leka Halasima in the centres. He's normally a back row. I thought he played very well out at the centres. And Aaron Clark, he was once a Titan. He was playing loose forward for the Warriors. And you don't see many loose forwards lock forwards kicking anymore, but he put this wonderful kick over to the far corner that was knocked down, and ultimately the Warriors scored a try off it. The Warriors, however, though, they do go up against the Penrith Panthers this week.
Be a big game, that one, and a psychological advantage to somebody, Dan.
It is.
If Warriors get one over on them, it just fires a shot, doesn't it, to the Penrith Panthers and says, if we meet you in the playoffs, just be wary, we can get you. And the Panthers can obviously, they can open up much more of a gap between them and third spot with a victory this week. So it's a big game. It's a huge game. Probably the game of the weekend this weekend.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Speaking of the Panthers, they were up next. They went against the Raiders. Panthers 42, Raiders 18. In the first 25 minutes, the Panthers had 80% possession, which is unheard of in a rugby league game. They were just so dominant. They were smothering the Raiders. Liam Martin got 2 tries, although his second one was a bit contentious. And obviously, we have to speak about him because he's so underrated. He's one of the most underrated players of history. He's Tom Jenkins on the wing. He's now got there's a stat where he's got more doubles in games than singles tries. He's obviously on course to break all sorts of records. He keeps breaking them. He got another 2 tries on this weekend. Where do you think? Do you think the Panthers are back at 100% now? Do you think that they're going to go on and win it, or do you think that other teams could potentially pick them?
I think that it was a big week for the Panthers from the previous loss. Again, the wrong time to meet the Panthers, isn't it? For the Raiders, who were on a decent run themselves. There was on a decent run, playing some decent stuff, but Penrith just click. I think the combination between Cleary and Martin's getting there again. As you said, Jenkins on the wing is scoring doubles for fun. He's certainly going to get one or more in a game. They're just they're travelling along really nicely without playing the best football, and I think there's still more gears in them. So it's probably exciting for the Panthers fans that they're still winning games and winning them handsomely, but I still think there's more in them. For the Raiders, disappointing season. The biggest fall from minor premiers to not going to make the 8. It's been a disappointment for them.
It doesn't get any easier for them. On Sunday, they take on the Newcastle Knights, who are scrapping for wins themselves to stay in the top 8. So it's going to be a tough one. It is down at GIO Stadium for the Raiders, but it's going to be a tough game for them. We'll move on to the Newcastle Knights. They ran out 30 points to 6 winners over the Brisbane Broncos. Newcastle Knights back to winning ways. I think it was the last 2 games that they've lost. I thought Kalen Ponga was sensational again. His return from injury and missing last week. Dom Young, the Englishman on the wing, he was fantastic. He got a try out wide. And also, there was a bit of biff as well. There was three sin binnings in the first half. Reece Walsh getting a good grab of a handful of hair of Dom Young's. It was all handbag stuff, really. But Newcastle Knights, they ran away with it in the end. 30 points to 6. What do you see the Knights' chances?
When you look at performances over the weekend, I know the Roosters was brilliant, but arguably the performance of the weekend comes from Newcastle.
Yeah.
Such a dominant performance off last year's champions against last year's champions. Ponga back in the team certainly fills everybody else with confidence. I think it's a special player that when he plays, he drags an extra 5, 6, maybe 10% out of everybody else. Yeah. And I think that's the confidence he gives everybody around them at Newcastle. As you said, Dom Young was good. They've been a revelation for me in 2026, the Knights. And Justin Albrook's done a wonderful job.
Yeah, he has. But yeah, the Knights march on, another win for them. And that cements them into the top 8. I think the 6 at the moment, they have dropped out the top 4, but I still think that they make the playoffs. Moving on to the second to last game, Cronulla Sharks 32, South Sydney Rabbitohs 16. And we'll mention it again, 32 consecutive conversion kicks for Nico Hines. He's 3 away from equaling the record. NRL, that is, anyway. I think the record's 35, as we mentioned last week for El Masri. The Sharks, again, though, so fluent. They look like the one team that's outside of that 3 or 4 team kind of, where you've got the Roosters, Panthers, and potentially Warriors. I would say they're probably the next best in line with Trindle and Nico in the halves, and obviously
Kennedy's impressive.
Yeah,
Kennedy's a good player, mate.
Yeah,
a very good player, really underrated. Because everybody speaks about Walsh and Ponga and Tedesco, and Will Kennedy's just outside of them. But what a job he's doing by getting on the end of things. His energy, his aerobic capacity to get around the field and be in position. I think he's a very underrated fullback.
I was going to say that the strange one with Will is the last 3 contracts he's had have all been 1-year deals with the Sharks. It's like they've never really. They must have thought
they're waiting for somebody better.
And he's like you say, he's a phenomenal fullback. He's very safe. He's very good in attack and defense. And it's just always been a strange one for me, where they just keep dangling that carrot and will keep you along. And I just think sometimes a bit disrespectful as well.
Hines and Trindle in the halves are just pulling strings.
Yeah, they are.
The shape and structure of the team's good. You know what they're going to do, but trying to defend it's really difficult. So I think they're going really well, the Sharks, and they would be an outside bet. I know they struggled at playoff time, and that's their Achilles heel a little bit. People keep saying, can they do it in playoffs and get over the line in big games in playoffs? And I think they're an outside bet to get it done this year.
Yeah, I know. I agree with that. We'll see how the Sharks finish the season off, because we know, obviously we've mentioned before, that they tend to get to the first or second week of finals and completely capitulate. So hopefully they can take that step, the next step, and replicate what happened in 2016. But we wait and see. Which brings us nicely into the final game, which I have no idea how to explain this one. If anyone watched this one, the Tigers 13 and the Eels 16, it was an absolutely wild game. 34 errors on the count across the game. There was people dropping the ball on their own 20, throwing passes out wide, interceptions, no track. There was just everything you could think of. It happened in this game. Adam Dewey obviously came back into the team, which was a big talking point, whether he should or shouldn't. Actually scored a try, which was a very good solo effort, and a very dodgy drop goal kick, but it went over the all count. But it wasn't enough in the end. The Eels ended up winning 16-13. Did you watch this game live?
I didn't see it live, Dan. I've seen the highlights but I think I've seen it being called the worst NRL game that people have ever seen. With
it was wild.
It's very unusual to see that many errors in a game in the NRL.
But
and the low quality of game. I think it shows where both teams and clubs are at. In terms of the need some kind of reset. Particularly the West Tigers. I think there's always too much noise coming out of the club.
There is.
Which doesn't help.
But
they need a bit of reset. One thing they have got, Dan, is they've got some brilliant young players at the Tigers.
They have.
And you hope that in a year or two or maybe three, that them players come to the fore and they get back to what was a wonderful 2005. It seems like it is a lifetime ago. It's a generation ago. When they won the NRL with the Benji flick pass to Pat Richards and a couple of players that I played alongside in Daniel Fitzhenry, Ben Galea, Mark O'Neill at Hull that were brilliant for the Tigers as well. So we hope for better times for Jason Riles and the Eels. Job done.
Job done. It is certainly job done. The Tigers, I cannot believe the two halves of season that they've had is just chalk and cheese.
Absolutely.
But they're looking for next year now. But that wraps it up now for the NRL Week 22 results and analysis. Let's get straight into the Super League news. Straight into the Super League news then. Biggest story, it's not reached the main media yet, I don't think. It's been more on the fan forums, especially at the Wire, Warrington Wolves. Sam Burge is imminently due to pen a 3-year deal. It's not been leaked into the media yet. It's not been covered by Sky Sports, but I think it's well and truly on its way. How do you? I asked you this question last week. How do you rate him? Do you think he deserves the 3-year extension? And can he be the one to get them over the line, the Warrington Wolves?
Well, it's continuity for the club. It's continuity which they haven't had in the previous coaches. I think he's done a decent job. Yeah, I don't think he's been dealt a brilliant hand. The owners are always willing to put their hands in the pockets. I think Brodie Croft signing is a big one. They've got Erwin, who's a brilliant young half coming through. Hayes is in there as well. Kai Taylor at fullback. So, Danny Walker at 9. They've got a spine there for the next few years as well. So, I was with TalkSport at the weekend, and we listened to Sam and his pre-match before Castleford last week, and he said, "I've agreed it. I've just not signed it. The handshake's as good as, so I won't be going back on the deal." So I think the deal's done. It's just not as you said, not reached the mainstream media, and it's a decent move for the club. I think it gives them continuity.
Yeah, it's because I feel like, for looking out of the Warrington fans' eyes, they were probably looking at it thinking, the Perth job, obviously Mal Meninga got it. I'm pretty sure Sam would have chucked his hat in the ring for that one. PNG job, obviously Willie Peters got it. Do you feel like he's sticking around purely because the opportunity in the NRL isn't there yet?
No, I think Dan, that is still a relatively young coach.
Yeah.
He's not. This is his first head coach's job. He didn't do too long as an assistant before he got this head coach's job. Yeah. He ended acrimoniously at Sal's because of his principles and morals, which I'm all for, by the way.
Yeah.
He had a fallout with Jason Demetriou by all accounts. So I just think he should spend more time as a head coach and cut his teeth and make sure he can make mistakes. I think the big one this year for Warrington will be who they employ as an assistant with Steve McNamara going, because I think Steve's been good for him from what he's said and what I've heard on the grapevine. So I think he'd be at Warrington for the next couple of years, maybe 3. It depends how well they go and what other jobs come up. But there's no question he's got ambition to go back to Australia and coach in the NRL. And I don't think there's anything wrong with him saying that.
I don't want anyone to get me wrong, by the way. I love Sam Burgess, loved him as a player. The reason I prod these questions towards you, Paul, is because he was such a sensational player on such a high pedestal. He's always going to be criticised and scrutinised a lot more harshly than maybe a Rowley would have been at St Helens. That's no disrespect to Paul Rowley, but because of his stature in the game as a player, and you then come into it, it doesn't always transpire as being an impressive player to an incredible coach. It doesn't always work. So I feel like that's why I put the questions towards you.
Yeah.
But we'll wait and see. Wait for the news to be announced and see how well it go over the next 2 or 3 years. The next piece of news: Kai O'Donnell potentially returning to the Lee Leopards. Currently with the North Queensland Cowboys, we all know how good of a stint that he had at the Lee Leopards first time around. I think it was something like 38 tries in 43 games, I think it was, as a back rower, in sensational figures. But he's only made 5 appearances for the Cowboys this season, and his last one was back in round 7, a defeat to Manly. His contract is also expiring with the Cowboys at the end of the season, so I feel like it should happen. The feedback I've got from the Lee Leopards fans is they want him yesterday. They want him back. That's how highly they rate him.
He's on his way. Listen, Dan, I can hear the plane just going over my house now. Aaron Penny has been released from his deal. That frees up the quarter spot. Kai O'Donnell's on the flight over, I believe. The club's just not announced it yet, but I put on social media last night that Lee Leopard's making changes. One thing you know with Derek Beaumont at Lee is if there's a player to be had and he's got the space, he will go get him. Because he doesn't want a Challenge Cup win 3 years ago to be the last of. He wants to make grand finals and he wants to play in big games. He wants to win everything, every year, every game. And he'll do whatever it takes. And Kai O'Donnell fits that nicely. I think what you got with him on that left edge and Lockie Lamb, he'll slot straight back in. I think as Holton got injured, I think Frankie Holton's got an injury, which has seen him out for the rest of the year now.
Well, you've also got Owen Trout leaving as well. He's been playing a bit of back row for them. He's going to the Cronulla Sharks.
He's right edge back row, isn't he? So I think O'Donnell comes straight into the left edge.
Yeah, there was just before we move on, there's a couple of things on Kai O'Donnell. The first one was before, obviously, we found out before we come on air that Aaron Penn had left. I generally thought he was going to stay on. I didn't think he'd be the one that would be cut. The second part was Derek Beaumont had a very fractured relationship with Kai O'Donnell's agent. So I thought, was he going to throw, like obstacles in the way of Derek getting the deal done? But it seems like that, like you said, that they've sorted and ironed out whatever it was.
When you've only played 5 games of NRL since you went back, I think the agent's got to hold his hand up, and Kai O'Donnell and say it's not working out for him. Yeah. And it certainly did at the Lee Leopards. I know Derek has fractured relationships with agents. Agents are 10 a penny, aren't they? There's that many of them. They're all trying to do the best by the client. They're all trying to get the best percentage for themselves with a higher offer. So, I can understand that with Derek. He's a stickler for holding a grudge at times, and rightly so. And rightly so when it comes to spending his money.
Mean, he did make 17 or 18 appearances for the Cowboys last year, but it just seems to be this year he's just not fancied. I don't know why. He's been named as the reserve a couple of times in most recent weeks, but it just seems like you say, he's out the door. He must be on the plane already, and that's music to Lee Leopards fans' ears. Next piece of news coming from out of the NRL as well is Daniel Tupou, who we both rate highly. He's considering a Super League move. They've not named which clubs could be obviously attaining his services, but it doesn't look like the Roosters are willing to give him another deal, and which is baffling to me because how much we've raved on about how good his try scoring ability is, how good in the air he is, unless they know something that we don't.
Well, that was my next comment. There's something going on at that club that we don't know about in terms of training, whether he's had to cut training because of his age or any injuries. Whether he's struggling to train daily, make sure he makes every session. There'll be something in there, and with all due respect to the NRL, there's a new player waiting to come and take your spot very quickly. There's that many players, the player pool's that big. So if it does come over here, I can see it Catalan, possibly, depending on... I know John Cartwright's asked Nick Cottridge and Lewis Todd and a number of other players to let him know if they're going to be leaving the club because they've got other business to do. So maybe there, I think maybe south of France. I'm not sure he'd be used to a cold winter in the north of England. Daniel Tupou, having spent so long the Roosters, and he may well have a chat with Jared Warrior-Hargreaves in terms of what it's like in the north of England. So I know them two are really close. So yeah, it'll be interesting to keep an eye on that one.
Yeah. Next one, also coming out of the NRL, current St. George Illawarra Dragons front rower Blake Lawrie, linked with the Bradford Bulls and the Catalan Dragons. He's another one as well where he's played, I think he's made something like 130, 140 first grade appearances for the Dragons. He's a very well experienced front rower. But as of late, he has dropped out due to how many great young forwards that are coming through at the Dragons. He's not getting as much game time. So the Bradford Bulls seem to be the front runners, and speaking to their fans, they are desperate for another kind of alpha leader to come through, and he ticks all the boxes. He's a very good front rower. Where do you think he fits
I think it'd be a good move, Dan. I think it'd be a good move for Bradford particularly. One thing I know with the list that Kurt Haggerty's released on players is there's half a dozen of them that are decent players, good players. So they must have irons in the fire that they know that's coming over the line. And Blake Lawrie fits that. I think the injury to Ryan Sutton last week, calf injury, I'm not sure how bad that is, but we hope it's not as severe as his other injuries, certainly over 2024 and 25. And I don't think it will be, but they certainly need some more grunt up front for them. Some more nastiness and some more sort of punch and power. So Blake Lawrie fits that.
Yeah, he does. I think he'd be a phenomenal signing for the Bulls, exactly what they need. Last piece of news to round out the Super League news segment. Ravalawa sent on loan to Doncaster for the rest of the season from the Castleford Tigers, and it was literally less than 12 months ago. He was running out for the St. George Dragons in the NRL. I mean, how is he fallen so far down the order?
It's not, Matt, I say this a lot, Dan. It's not easy to come over from Australia and play in the Super League. It's not easy because of the weather. It's not easy because of the ground conditions. It's not easy because you're so far away from home where you've been all your life, and it's difficult. I went to Doncaster on Sunday, as daft as it sounds. I had a busy weekend. My partner was working, and I decided to go watch the game against Oldham. He's got an error in him, and that doesn't cut it in Super League. He's made a couple of serious errors in Super League, a couple of non-attempts at catches, and it just doesn't look good. When you're paying somebody so much money, they've got to be one of the best players on the field. I think Ryan Carr's got a heck of a lot of problems at the club with regards to individuals that are just not pulling weight and are not earning the salaries of the contract that they're on, and Ravalawa's been one of them. So he was good at Doncaster, by the way. He didn't do anything overly wrong. They won comfortably against a team in Oldham who have won 13 straight games or something like that. So it was a big win for them, and he was a part of that. But I mentioned a Cast fan, and he asked how he went, and I said I still don't think he displaced his senior or Tyler Sharp, who played his debut at the weekend, or Gary if he comes back in. I still don't see Ravalawa as replacing one of them.
Castleford has also announced Tyrell Sloan, and they've also announced Matt Feeney, who both can play on the wing. It's looking likely that Sloan will probably play fullback.
I think Tyrell Sloan comes in to play fullback. I think
fullback. I do think, but he can play out on the wing.
To Cass, because you've got PLT there, Phoenix Lower guy, and you've got players at the club that are playing position. It's difficult for Ryan Carr because he probably wants to turn that squad around in a massive way, but you've got players on contracts. One, you have to pay them off. Two, you've got to find them another club. Three, you may need some of them players, so you've got to be careful of bagging them all the time. In 2027. So it's a difficult job for Ryan, but coaching's not an easy job in any sport, let alone in Rugby League and the Super League.
Yeah, no, I agree. Before we move on from the Super League news, actually, one thing's just come back to me. We did touch on him earlier. Jack Welsby. I know you mentioned that he could potentially be going to Wigan, and the timeline fits. Do you see, before we move on, do you see that move happening from a personal point of view, and do you think that he would meet the Wigan standard? Do you think he would?
I don't think he meets Wigan standard now, and I think he will readily admit that. I think he's already mentioned that in another podcast. I think what was interesting about that podcast is the way he the way he referenced some of the wordage and people from Wigan. So the identity comment, which was what Matt Pete's comment. And then he mentioned Sean Wayne's giving him a great piece of advice at some point. And then, he's a Wigan lad and he's off contract at the same time as Field's off contract. Listen, if you're asking me to choose between Welsby and Field right now, I choose Field.
Yeah,
but that might not be Wigan's choice.
No, I don't think it will be.
So with all due respect, it may not be Wigan's choice. Now I'll ask you this: I can see it happening because of all them things aligning, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. But Jack may need to go to another club and a champion club to go back to being an international, because I'm not sure. Right now, I would pick AJ Brimson as fullback, and I wouldn't take him to the World Cup.
Well,
you've also got take Jack Welsby in the form he's in.
You've also got Ollie Ashelbot when he's fit. He's every bit as good.
I don't think he goes either. I think they would. If they take two specialist fullbacks, then I think that's a bit of a waste of a player in the squad. I think you can get away with playing a half that can play fullback, like Mikey Lewis did last year, although it didn't go real well. So he may decide to take two. Jake Connor can slot in there. Yeah,
he played at Huddersfield for them.
Form than him. So if you're asking me if Jack's an international player right now, no. But there's nothing to say that in a champion environment like Wigan, that the coaching staff may see fit. Bear in mind, they tried to sign him previously. I said this earlier. They tried to sign him previously. He's a Wigan lad. The other one, he didn't celebrate his try in front of the Wigan fans when he has done in previous seasons. I just think there's something in the water. I may be completely wrong, but listen, I've been around in the game long enough to have an opinion and understand why I'm having the opinion, and I'm big enough and man enough to hold my hands up and say I was wrong. I just feel that he will leave the club, because I don't think Saints are going to be as big a team in this competition, because I think the last 2 or 3 years of recruitment has set them back 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, no, I agree. The last bit on that is I've not watched that full podcast appearance that he made recently. I've only watched snippets of it.
I have too. I've not watched it fully yet.
The clips that I seen it did seem like a bit of a sales pitch, like "Hello, Matt Pete, hello, Wigan Warriors, come and get me," kind of thing, and that's what some of the comments seemed to be.
I think the questions were carefully questioned, and the answers were carefully answered. I'm just trying to delve deeper, and it's a fascination of mine. I try and get into the mind of someone. I don't know why. It's just a fascination. But the other one is, what will be interesting is if St Helens sanction that. Yeah. Because I'm not sure, with the current predicament that club's in, that I would sanction one of my players to go onto a podcast and reveal as much as he revealed.
No.
I just think right now, with the noise coming out of that club, I would try and stop the noise going out. So if Jack's gone and done that off his own back, which I think he probably has, I don't know the answer to that. I'm speculating. It's my opinion, but there's no way on the planet, if I'm the media manager or the head coach at that club, that I allow Jack Welsby to go and give a podcast talking about the standards at the club and the coach leaving and best pieces of advice, and and it wasn't at St Helens. It wasn't at his house. It was at his old amateur club.
Yeah.
It just baffles. It's just something doesn't add up.
It just adds to the circus as what has been at Saints this year.
He's out of contract as of November 1st. He can speak to other clubs. So it may be his way of putting pressure on St Helens, which is all well and good, by the way. This is what's fascinating about professional sport and contract negotiations is my dad described them as let the poker begin.
Yeah.
Let the poker begin. Let's see who keeps the cards close to the chest. Let's see who reveals a bit more. It's a fascinating time for a professional player when you go into contract negotiations.
Yeah, I completely agree. We wait and see where he ends up then. We wait and see if Saints are willing to offer him a new deal or whether he goes to Wigan or somewhere else like Hull or Catalan. We don't know.
But if you go to Hull or Catalan, Dan, if you go to Hull or Catalan, with all due respect, your international honours go further down the pan. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. But speaking from devil's advocate again, Sam Tompkins, he played out of the Wigan Warriors. He left and he was still playing, internationally.
Yeah, but he went to a Catalan Dragons who won a Challenge Cup and made a grand final.
They did.
I don't see that and Hull FC doing that.
They have recruited quite well, though. To be fair, Catalan with Hull, I'm not sure. It's going to take we're going to touch on them shortly, and I'm sure you'll have your say on them. There needs to be a lot of change there. But it's a tough one. We'll wait and see where he ends up. But that wraps it up for the Super League news this week. Let's get straight into Super League Round 21 results and analysis. Let's get into it then. Super League Round 21 analysis. First game, Thursday, we labelled it as the wooden spoon game. Huddersfield Giants 22, Hull FC 16. The Giants just pipping Hull. Poor defence from both sides. It was 10-6 at half-time. Litton bagged 2 tries for the Hull FC side. Connor Wrench was my man of match. I think he's been very good for them in the past few weeks. What now for Hull FC? What now?
Well, let's hope Huddersfield don't win 2 games and Hull don't win and Hull don't win any. For them, to not finish bottom of the table will be an achievement now. The 2 points behind, but the healthy points difference means probably the 3 points in front or 4 points in front with another game. So, 94 missed tackles in the game.
Yeah. Crazy stat.
When we talked earlier about West Tigers and Parramatta Eels with the errors that was made in that game, we're talking 94 missed tackles. That's not Super League standard either.
No, it's not.
Yeah, but I thought Hull FC would go there and win at the beginning of the week, and then I looked at some of the team selection and other things around the club and noises again coming out of the club about SASA and illness. And what has happened with all of that, and I just felt that Huddersfield would win. I tipped them by 10 in the end with a competition I'm in. I changed my mind on it.
The SASA stuff, was that during the captain's run as well? Captain's run.
He called in sick for captain's run, yeah. So I'm not sure whether he was playing or not, or whether he's 18th man or not. The problem with Hull is it's rife for rumours. He was seen at the gym by a friend of mine on Saturday, so it's some kind of recovery that he's had with the medicines he's on, or whether it's not. I don't know. Again, Dan, I'd just rather the team go out and perform and play and talk the talk rather than walk the walk. And whatever's happening at the club, something needs to be gotten a grip of. Yeah.
I know you're sick of talking about them. That's why I thought we'd get them out the way first.
It's tough because you get I said this yesterday on the Back 10 podcast. You get called a bitter ex-player, and I'm not. Honestly. No. I hope the club win grand final after grand final, and they play Hull KR in every final, where I spent the majority of my career. But I aren't too bothered if not. You know, with all due respect, the game's more important to me than any one club. And you know, I'd rather talk about what's happening at the top of the table, the top 3 being which position, and the 6 and who's going to go where, and having an exciting end to the season. But ultimately, when I look at, I did Bradford and Hull KR and Bradford on Friday night. I see so much more in Bradford Bulls team and players than I do at Hull FC. And that's sad because they're spending much more than Bradford Bulls, and the salary cap that they do spend is up there. So there's some major changes need to be made. I know there's changes coming in. Scott Taylor's joined the coaching staff for 2027. I think he's a great appointment. You know, he really cares about the club and has got a very, very in-depth knowledge of the game. When you speak to him, I really enjoy my conversations with Scott when we catch up. I think Danny Houghton should be given more of a role. I think he's still at the club now. And when I have an hour on the phone with Danny as well, you know, when you're genuinely talking to people that actually care about the club and care about the people at the club and the players, and want it to be done right. So, you know, I hope 2027 is a better season for Hull FC.
Before we move on from that, the 2 shining lights for me, we'll end on a positive note. David Litton scored 2 tries, and Logan Moy. Yeah, I really like this guy as a young lad as a player, very elusive. I think if you could build on, obviously when you get Will Price back, you've got Will Price, Logan Moy, David Litton. There is foundations there. It's just there needs to be a lot added to it. The coaching obviously needs to be.
What are them 2 players, Dan? They're local.
Yeah.
Local players.
Yeah.
Local players, the care.
Yeah.
I just think there's some players there that if you're told by a club that you're not going to be kept at the end of the season, one, you need to be in the shop window and playing some good football.
Yeah.
And I just don't see that. But Huddersfield, by the way, were decent again. They've won 2 straight, and what you can see with what Jim Lenihan's brought in is he's brought he's brought in a work ethic, getting the frame and getting bodies on balls, and the talentless requirements of the game. I think Huddersfield did far better than Hull FC. You talk about David Litton and shining light. There's noises again within the city that there's players there that are doing okay, that are happy because of the standards and because of people that are taking the mickey out of the club that are higher earners. So it's just it's a poor environment at the minute, but I do believe it will change in 2027 with the new head coach, and I do believe that there's people in positions underneath him that care greatly about the club.
Yeah, we wait and see how it all unfolds next season. Let's move straight into one of 3 games that I've got a bit of a gripe about this. 3 games all kicking off on Friday night at the same time. It's no good for the fan. It's no good for the game, in my opinion. That needs to be sorted out. But we'll delve into that on another podcast. First game that we'll go through, one of 3, Rhinos 46, Toulouse 0. Absolutely domination, one-sided game. Aletsky and McDonnell, again, the standouts for me. Obviously, the 2 Perth lads, they're going to be a big miss next year. And Jake Connor continues to be one of the best in-form halves in the competition. His form is through the roof. His team is sat at the top of the table, but there's still a lot of pushback from fans that say he shouldn't be in the 7 jersey for England.
Dan, he's got to go for me. He's got to go.
He has to.
And the suspension of Mikey Lewis means he's got to go before Mikey Lewis right now.
Yeah.
Because Mikey could come back and he could play 3 brilliant games and then get knocked out in round 1 of the playoffs and doesn't go to Leeds for a semi-final. And then all of a sudden he's 2 weeks behind Jake Connor, who's got 2 more weeks of playing in big games. And I think he will go to the World Cup. I think Brian McDermott's already had a conversation with him. I hope so. So I just think it's going to be really interesting with Jake Connor. But the Rhinos, just job done. Ollie Ashall missing is a huge miss for Toulouse. There's no player at the club that can replace him because of their squad depth. So they were on a hiding to nothing. Job done for Leeds. Top of the table, still going on. And I still believe there's improvement in them. Yeah,
there is, definitely. Move on to the game that you commentated on. Hull KR 40, Bradford Bulls 16. That's also the same. Hull KR's job done. They seem to be finding that momentum now. That they're starting to click a little bit finally. Willie Peters have been pulling his hair out all season, wondering where it's at. The one standout moment for me, and I would imagine you're going to go through it with me, is Tyrone May's solo effort. He's tried down the right side. I mean, there is an argument to say there's some weak defence in there. He should be put down on 2 or 3 occasions, but the grit, determination, and to go down that right side and get there, I thought it was sensational by Tyrone.
Yeah, I think I picked out I picked out Dean Hadley before the game as a player alongside Ryan Sutton as a head-to-head, both unsung. There's a couple of occasions in games. I think Willie spoke about one of them afterwards where Jez overchases Jez Litton and Dean Hadley just cleans up on the inside. Mr. Clean up, fix it, Mr. Fix it. And I thought Dean was very good. Thank God for Jez Litton. I think Jez Litton holds everything together in the middle of the field. Minchella's been spelled. So to lose the captain and Jez becomes like the on-field captain for me and holds it all together. I gave him player of the match. Thought Ryan Hampshire was good in the halves, but Mikey Lewis commands a position when he comes straight back. I think Hull KR have got a little lucky with the 4 games that Mikey Lewis is missing. Yeah. Because I think if they play any other team other than Hull FC last week, they'll lose to Hull FC with the way they played. And then they play Bradford, and Bradford had to rejig because they lost a couple of players. Guy Armitage, Connor Wynn went off. They ended up playing Hooley on the wing. They played Fulton in the centre. They ended up rejigging the right edge, which got peppered a bit in the early second half. So I think they've got a little lucky, Hull KR, with who they've played.
The reason I say they just seem to be building is because they're knocking off a few results, a few teams now. They've moved up to 5th in the table. They're only 2 points behind Warrington. and they've got that game in hand against Warrington. So if they can beat Warrington, because they've got a better points difference, they will go up to 4th spot, which is massive in a playoff term. It could change everything.
There's some big psychological advantages to be had over the next few weeks. It starts with Leeds Wakefield this week. There's a big game at the top of the table, but Hull KR Warrington's a big game in terms of if we meet in the playoffs later. I think Hull KR finish 4th. I think they'll finish 4th. I think Warrington Lee will finish 5th, and Warrington will finish 6th. I still think there's gears in Hull KR. They may try, by the way. I apply, dancing feet. There's 3 or 4 Bradford players would want to replay the play and try and make a tackle a bit better to what they attempted. Brilliant try. Connor Wynn's try was another brilliant one. His catch, he sort of pirouettes 360 in the air and goes a distance. He gets caught by Ryan Hampshire, but he was always going to get rid of him with the pace Ryan was going at. He's strong, Connor. So a couple of really good tries in there. But as you said, job done for FC. But big mention for Bradford and Kurt Haggerty. I'm impressed by him. One thing about his team is they're not going to give up. And as I said, when you watched Huddersfield and Hull FC, where they've waved the white flag, and Castleford at Magic Weekend to a degree, where Ryan Carr calls his team out, that's something Bradford can never be accused of, even though they're beaten by 40.
No, they can't. For Bradford, they go up against a Warrington Wolves team on Saturday, which obviously you're commentating on. Castleford take on Hull KR, so it's going to be tough for the Bulls going forward, but I think they've done very well this season. First season back in, thought Kurt's done an exceptional job. We'll move on to the other Friday night game, the final one, which was the derby. Lee Leopards 8, Wigan Warriors 20. Lee Leopards they started okay, started quite well, very good atmosphere, incredible atmosphere. But the Warriors was too good in the end, and they got caught napping on a few occasions. Lee, especially for the Jai Field full length try, he's bringing it back for a tap, and all the players are facing their own goalposts, and it's just a complete mess. And you could see Adrian Lamb was frothing at the mouth.
It changes Adrian Lamb's team talk, Dan. Because at 8-0, they've been really good. They've defended really well. They give away a penalty for holding down. If it's a 10-metre penalty, the quick tap can't be taken by Jay Field. He actually speaks to the referee. It's really smart play, and I think that is the big momentum change in the game. Then I've heard people say, the offload from the new signing from Melbourne, I forget his name.
Vialepu.
That's it. He makes an offload, but they've got to be in position. Wigan have got to be in defensive position to snaffle that up. And the other 2 tries where they're intercepts and they're picking up scraps, that's great defensive reads and plays. So I thought when I saw Pappy and Charlie missing again, that depth of squad at Lee is just not quite at the level of a Wigan or a Leeds or a Hull KR Wakefield, if you like. So you feared for them. I had them to lose by 2. When I saw the team selection, I thought maybe 10, 12, 14. It ended up 12. But you just fear for Lee a little bit when they're missing some big players. Tessie New's a big miss for them, obviously. He's out for the remainder of the season. But you wouldn't want to meet Lee in a playoff game because they can get it right. And if they do get it right, they beat teams comfortably. But well done to Wigan. I thought it was a big result for them.
I've mentioned it a few times, and Lachlan Lamb is a sensational quality halfback, and Amila Hanley. I think he's pushing for one of them spots as also at England. I think he's had a incredible season, and I still think they could cause an upset in the playoffs. I don't think they'll make Old Trafford this year. I think they're just lacking, like you said, that 2 or 3 players that they need in the squad.
Well, all that are injured, Dan. Or that testing you, they missed testing you. His physicality, So the other one that's interesting with Lachlan Lamb is, mate, if I'm Willie Peters, I'm trying my best to get him over. If I don't get Cam Munster, then I go for Lachlan Lamb. He's a BNG international. I know Lee won't want to hear that, but listen, it's a ruthless game.
It is. Move on to Saturday's games. Castleford Tigers 18, Warrington Wolves 48. Castleford in the first 25 minutes, it obviously looked a blowout. It was a blowout in the end. Castleford in the first 25 minutes, 16-4 up, and then I think they kind of it's the same again what I mentioned before with another game where they just didn't have that belief. It's like, oh my God, we're 16-4 up, kind of got a nosebleed, and then like you said, they go into the cells, go into their own shell, and Warrington just made them pay. I thought Matty Ashton, phenomenal performance. Ewan Irwin again, and Sipley, he's a beast. Yeah, Sipley, good. He's a good player. That try he scored under the post. Cass waiting for 2027. Another one you would tick off.
There's a lot of Cass players that are there that have been labelled, individual problems, individual issues, same common denominators is what's been mentioned in the press. Again, if that's you, do you go in and speak to the coach and say, if you're speaking about me, what can we do to fix it? Can you help me, coach? Or has he got to the end of his tether? It sounds like he's got to the end of his patience with lots of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, at 16-4, I thought, and I actually had Cass to win. I thought Cass would get a job done because Warrington have struggled away from home a little bit. But well done to Sam's team and well done to Sam and his staff, and particularly the players that were brilliant from 16-4 onwards.
Yeah,
some really soft, and I think that's what Ryan's talking about, some soft individual errors for tries.
Yeah.
Marker play. I think I said it was Louis Senior. It wasn't. It was Mellor at marker who just over chases. Ball back on the inside to Ashton, back to Toby King. Sipley, there's 3 or 4 players around him. That's a really soft try. The first try where PLT, he's got to grab on Holroyd. There's 2 sides to the game, son. You got to make a tackle.
That's what I was going to say to you about PLT, Phoenix Laulu Tonga guy. His attack, it's unquestionable. Yeah. He's very silky. He's got pace. He's got a step. He can score a try, but his defense is so weak.
A major part of a fullback is saving tries now.
Yeah,
wingers saving tries now.
Do you think
corners?
Do you think that's what could cost him his space in 27?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Leon Hayes chips over him. I spoke about Sean Briscoe earlier in the podcast. You've got to put your head where it hurts and get rid of that football, son.
Yeah.
Listen, Cass are waiting for 2027. There's some fight in the Malian games, but when it goes against him, it spirals, and there's no way of changing momentum for them. But well done to Warrington.
Yeah, well done to Warrington indeed. Next one. I would say it's a shock, but I don't think it was a shock. The way that the club is the circus at the moment. York Knights 34, Saints 32. Paul Vaughan with a monstrous performance. Thought he was exceptional off the bench. Yeah. Benison and Scott Galliano, outside backs, played very well. Obviously, John Benison being an ex-Saints lad. And Xavier Var, a great pickup from the Roosters. His brother's still there now at the Roosters, so it wouldn't surprise me if they make a play at him as well. But I just think Mark Applegarth has got this team a bit like Kurt Haggerty has with the Bradford Bulls. He's got them believing, he's got them wanting to play for the shirt, and that is a massive scalp. Just like they got Hulk out at the start of the season, this is another big scalp for Mark Applegarth's men, isn't it?
Yeah, I had York. I tip York. I feel Saints are in a world of pain, and it's so difficult to turn that around. The fractures within the club, but that's to take nothing away from York. For Ollie Field was great on the left edge with Nick Williams.
Yeah.
They're a team that just quietly go about the business. York, they've lost quite a number of games straight. No noises coming out of the club other than the chairman and other than the director Clint leaving and the chairman at the club at the minute. We're probably going to be leaving the club completely. From what I'm told. So, big performance. Saints look back to somewhat with football in hand, scored some nice tries. Welsby.
Harry Robertson, he's vital for the Saints to keep hold of him. I mean, if any more noise, the way the club is now, when we spoke about Welsby with obviously potentially being unhappy.
Robertson to Wakefield, isn't it?
Yeah. So I think his head could be turned, and you never thought you would have said that a few years ago. No disrespect, but you would have always thought that Saints have that hierarchy, but the way that the club is now, the way it's being run, the hands it's in, that there's every chance that move can come off because Matt Ellis will pursue him. There's no doubt about
that. Not only that, but like I said about Welsby, when the club's not making the 6 and Wakefield could be sat second and going to Old Trafford.
Yeah.
You go into a club which is on the up and which is playing better rugby league, not better games of rugby league in playoff games and Challenge Cup ties, because Saints just look a million miles off. And I mentioned it on the podcast yesterday. I mentioned the week before it was a shame, and somebody put, it's not a shame. Nobody cares about St Helens. Nobody cares if they're not going well. Their fans are the only people that care, and the people within the organisation. But there's nobody else should be, caring about what St Helens are going through, or not trying to pick off their best players because they're a higher club right now. And who would have said that 2 years ago when Wakefield were in the Championship, that they could have a chance of taking a Harry Robertson off them?
Exactly.
Maybe they haven't. Maybe they haven't done it. Maybe it's a pipe dream, but it's a pipe dream that Matt Ellis is determined to pursue.
I was going to say there's never smoke without fire. But in terms of St Helens, they drop out the six. Well, they're already out the six, but it confirmed that they're out the six. And I don't think I'm with you. I do not see them with the fixtures they've got left. They've got Hull FC this week at home. They may
win this week.
Get across. This week. Yeah. But yeah, in terms of York, they travel away to Lee Leopards. Very difficult game for them this week. But can't take anything away. I think Mark Applegarth's done a fantastic job. York Knights should be proud of what they've done this week.
Couldn't agree more, Dan.
The final game of round 21, Catalan Dragons 12, Wakefield Trinity 32. I thought it was an even contest for the first hour. But some of the performances from the Trinity pack, Vanganar, Hamlin Ueli off the bench was fantastic. And obviously Cam Scott got a double. Back up to second place for the Catalan Dragons, barring the two halves, Dodden and Sexton. I think they struggled in this one. I thought they may have backed up with a decent performance after the victory over Toulouse last week. But yeah, Trinity, job done, as you would normally say for them as well.
I thought it was a potential banana skin for them as well, to be fair, Dan.
Yeah.
I thought, Catalan's not easy to go over there and win. You've got all of the change of the travel, the hotel, the food, the later kick-off. Well done to Wakefield again. I think John Cartwright's comments were interesting. He wants to know if a couple of players are staying or not, so he can start rebuilding for 2027. So that's an interesting one. There's a couple of players obviously not committed, or have probably got deals elsewhere that they're thinking about signing, or have even signed them. So I think over the next month you'll find out what Catalan is going to be looking like in 2027. But their season's done. Wakefield up to second again, as you said. Job well done. Well done to Darryl and his team and staff. And their big game is this week against the Leeds Rhinos at home, who they beat in the Challenge Cup in the last knockout game in the quarter-final.
Couldn't agree more. In closing, I've got a couple of questions for you, as I always do at the end of every podcast. Who currently is your head coach of the year in Super League after round 21?
Brad Arthur. Sat top of the table. Honourable mentions for the three promoted teams in Sylvan Hullers, Mark Applegarth and Kurt Haggerty. Yep. But I don't think you can look past what Leeds Rhinos have done. There was there or thereabouts last year. Lost last play of the game to St Helens in the playoffs. A disappointing Challenge Cup round 4 loss, 5 loss to Wakefield this year. But I think they're on the cusp of something. They could very much end up at Old Trafford with either Wakefield or Wigan or any other team. But you can certainly see that there's been massive improvement in Leeds Rhinos.
Final question then. Who is your current leading man of steel?
Oh, geez, that is a tough one. That is a really tough one.
I'll start you off. I've gone for Jake Connor, top of the charts.
You can't see past Jake Connor, can you? Do you know who's really, really impressed me this year? Ash Hanley.
Yeah.
Ash Hanley moving into, he's playing centre. He's put tries on a plate for Sevo, but you can't look past Jake Connor and his performances.
No, you can't.
He's been very good. There's another one up there. Brad O'Neill's up there. Brad O'Neill's been very, very good.
Yeah.
Brad O'Neill and Jake Truman's been good at Wakefield. I think he's been really good. So some big players. Fat Healy's been good at Wakefield off the bench. Their bench has been good. Ueli and him, Hamlin, Ueli, and Fartili. So yeah, there's been some great individuals, but you look at Jake Connor and he just looks on top of his game right now.
He does. Well, that wraps it up for this week's podcast. Thank you, as usual, Paul. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for joining me. And as I always say, if you're free next week, we go again.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you for all watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Please remember to like, subscribe, and comment. And until next week, goodbye from me and Paul.